Hunter joins me in the studio. Welcome back, Jason.
Thank you very much. Great to be here again.
Jason Hunter has been, fighting the Brexit fight. In fact, I was going to leave your news to the end, but you have been working on stopping Brexit for so long that you now have quit your job to do this full time.
It's really hard when you try and do two full-time jobs at sort of 40, 50 hours a week each. It was just killing me. It really was. It came to the point where I had to make a decision and do one of them. And the most important job that I can possibly do now is put out the facts, continue the fact-finding with Three Blokes in a Pub, and making sure people are aware of the consequences of what Brexit actually means, because Theresa May still doesn't know. The public need to know, and it's catastrophic.
We'll get on to what Theresa May knows and doesn't know in a second. But so how are you? Okay, so how are you getting by then, if you don't mind me asking, if you don't have your job and you're fighting Brexit? Because I think fighting Brexit doesn't really pay that much.
Well, I'm absolutely humbled. I started a crowdfunder on Wednesday morning, and so many different individual contributors have raised sufficient money for me to get through till the end of next April. It was one of the fastest growing crowdfunders that I've seen. Over £34,000 in 2 days.
In 2 days?
Yeah.
That's extraordinary.
I'm totally humbled by the level of support and the number of people out there who care about Brexit. They care about the country. They care about their lives and their kids' futures. And they want this to stop. We've spent so much time travelling the world with Three Blokes, fact-finding missions. We've been to Geneva. We've spoken to international trade experts. We've been to Belfast and Dublin. We've done episodes of Three Blokes in a Pub on the actual border itself in Ireland, or the non-border, as it should be called. We've been across to Brussels, and we're talking with people, and the level of access that we're being given to find the facts and present them back to the UK. Our UK government are lying to us. We know this is a fact. And government ministers are lying to us. We know this is a fact. And
in what ways? Because their assessments so far, the papers that are coming out, I mean, there was a paper yesterday basically advising people saying, if you've got a company that's heavily invested in the EU, consider moving. That was extraordinary.
Extraordinary advice, extraordinary. But we were in Geneva, and they were telling us, some of the leading international trade experts in the world, and they said, look, Liam Fox could be forgiven for some of his public statements, political statements that he made a couple of years ago, because he just didn't know what he was talking about. And they said, but since then, he's been back and forth to Geneva 8 times. We've told him that the statements he's making are not true. So not only does he now know what he's saying is not true, he's deliberately lying and misleading the public when he's talking about all of these new international trade deals. It's astounding that he can stand there and do that.
Well, you're here with us for the next hour. So people wishing to ask Jason a question. Of course, Gisela, ask her a question. Do give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number you need. I want to hear from you what you think should happen next. We are being told this is the end game. These are the final stages. You hear language like, oh, we're almost there. We're weeks away. And then you hear things like Andrea Leadsom, I think, said she's threatening to walk out. Although if that's news, then I think we're all in deep trouble. But Penny Mordaunt as well, Priti Patel, they're all waiting to be convinced. It comes down to the backstop being the problem. And we're going to get into that in a second. I'm going to go to Gisela in a second to find out what she thinks as a chairperson of Vote Leave, what Gisela feels where we're at the moment. But before that, because we've got a caller, we're going to put him straight through. Jordan, welcome to the show.
Hello, how are you today?
Well, very well. Thank you for calling in. Have you got a question for Jason or Gisela or myself?
I was listening to the show and I'm obviously talking about Brexit and things like that. And I was just wondering what the implications would be for students, because not many people have been talking about that.
Okay. Jason, can you shed some light here?
Do you mean sort of studying internationally as part of things like the Erasmus program that the UK will lose when we leave the European Union?
Yeah, different things like that. I mean, I'm a Brexiteer. I'm just started uni and I've just started it with a year abroad, and I've got to decide this year where I go. But will Brexit and things like that affect countries within the EU that we can go to as students?
Well, currently, if we get no withdrawal agreement when Theresa May comes back from the EU Council Summit on Wednesday evening next week, or Thursday, she'll probably be back. If she comes back with no withdrawal agreement, it means that we leave the European Union at 1 minute past 11 on the 29th of March next year. And when we leave with no deal, no withdrawal agreement, everything stops. And they told us that when we were in 12 hours of meetings across in Brussels about a month ago. And we said, well, what does it mean when you say everything stops? And they said everything. All of your treaties cease to apply. It's very simple. It's in the third paragraph of Article 50. So your freedom of movement ends. Your ability to cross the channel on a ferry, but how do you know the ferry is going to be able to dock in the port at the other end?
Okay. Look, Gisela, there's a concerned student. He's a Brexiteer. He's now wondering, because it's a strange thing when it was celebrated that free movement will end, because it's all of a sudden it's the equivalent of saying, that right you had to go and live, work and love in all these wonderful different countries in Europe. Well, we don't have that right anymore, so there you go, celebrate that. So what have you got to say to Jordan, who is wondering, he's got his year off abroad in Europe, what does it mean for him?
I've got some really big news for you. Young people all over the world were travelling, working, falling in love well before 1974.
Sure,
and even,
I know,
even the Erasmus was before 1974. So let me just finish this trail. So what we've now got a position is we are coming towards the end game of a really tense negotiations, and Jason says if there's no deal, and this is always the kind of thing, everything will stop. Which, of course, is in no one's interest for everything to stop.
But that's the law. That's international law.
Yes, I know. I've sat in EU negotiations where when the deadline was midnight, we even took the ruse where suddenly someone said it's the UK presidency, and in London it's still 11 o'clock. And
We've got 2 more hours.
And we had another hour negotiating. So I think what you will find then is, the planes will still fly because you have short kind of deals on things. And this is just Project Fear Mark 2, 3, 4, or 5.
I don't accept that. I do not accept that, Gisela. And let me tell you what.
Okay,
Heathrow Airport.
Jason, wait until Gisela finishes her point, and I'll bring you in. Okay.
What we should do now is, because we can sit in here both painting the darkest pictures possible, don't you really think that responsible grown-ups should spend their energy now and saying, what do we need to do to implement a democratic decision to make this work? Now, let's just look with Erasmus or Horizon 2020. I think there's absolutely not, I would say, and said during the campaign, this is one of those schemes where we should buy in. We should continue to contribute to it.
There's dozens
Project
of them.
2020, Israel is a partner. So...
Correct, because it's negotiated. It's a negotiated partnership.
So why shouldn't we do that?
Well, we will, and I have no doubt that we'll get one of the best trade deals with the European Union in the world. But there's a massive time chasm that nobody else wants to talk about from 11:01 p.m. next year until we've renegotiated our way back into all of these different agreements.
Which is why the next few weeks are so important. Let me do a counter. The former High Commissioner of Australia, who also was an Australian foreign minister for many time, Alexander Downer. These are people who not only know what they're talking about, they have negotiated those deals, not just like you and me talk to people who negotiate these deals. He struck them. And he sort of says he sees no reason why the United Kingdom shouldn't get decent deals and why we shouldn't find agreement.
Okay, Jordan, thank you for calling. I mean, Gisela thinks that Erasmus, we can negotiate our way to continuing that. But I think the truth that we can all agree with in this room is that should there be a no deal, the idea that you might choose to... What degree are you getting, Jordan, by the way?
Law and politics.
Law and politics. Well, you won't be able to practice those outside of the UK. So there you go.
That is not true, Alex.
It is true. It is
true. You won't be able to go and practice those outside of the UK as easily as you can today.
But even now to this day, law are services. And if you go to France or to Germany, the kind of internal barriers to actually qualify to work in the German law practice, services is the one area where the single market has never been completed. It was difficult now and will continue to require.
You mentioned qualifications, but there's an international level of
recognition. Thank you for your call. We're going to have to leave it there and pick up. I'm going to come back to you because we've got Chris on the line. Listen, you're going to get a lot of love, Gisela, here. Chris from Colchester is called. Hi, Chris. We've spoken before. Hello, mate. How you doing?
Hiya. You all right?
Yeah, I'm all right. Go on. Yeah. What is it you want to ask?
Well, look, Alexis, I disagree with most of what you say, and I do like you and I enjoy the show. But
bless you, thank you.
When are we going to get out of referendum mode? It's been 2 years, and it's.
What do you mean by that?
You're getting people on that are still we've heard these arguments. We had all these arguments before the referendum, and they're still being pushed now to try and thwart the result and trying to get another referendum and stop Brexit. But I just want to ask people, what are you going to do if you do overturn the result? What are you going to do then? There's already a storm in the country waiting to brew. If this gets thrown over and we stay in the European Union, you don't understand what's coming. I mean, I'm no voice of. I haven't got a massive voice, but I know people who have, and I'll make sure that there will be civil unrest. I'll tell everyone.
Chris, and what's in it? You know, what are you going to gain by that then? So if the country goes to the polls again to get a better informed decision with more information of what a deal would look like, or whether we want to go no deal, we want to go forget the whole thing. Now, I understand why you have a problem with that, and I hear your pain. I do. I don't agree with it, but I can understand why you feel it. But what's the point of saying, well, if that happens, then we're all going to have civil unrest? I mean, what's the point of even talking like that?
You know, that's so Orwellian, what you just said. Like, oh, we're better informed. It's straight out of Animal Farm. It's ridiculous. You know, we've had the referendum.
Right. But facts have changed. At the time, Chris, hang on. We've chatted a long time, and I know that you've got a brain on you, and you always talk intelligent stuff when you call the show. But hang on a second. At what point during the referendum, Gisela's camp or the Leave camp, the Leave.eu was the other one. Did anybody mention things like no deal, that we might be crashing out with no deal at all? Was that even on the table?
Well, it was.
Did you vote for that?
I voted to cut all ties from the European. They're not going to give us a deal. That would be ridiculous of them to do it as well. But you know, we both like Yanis Varoufakis, even though he wanted us to stay in because he was naive enough to think the European Union could reform.
Mm-hmm.
So I listened to him talk about the European Union, and he says the Eurogroup is basically what controls it. You can watch like a 7-minute video to him talking about the Eurogroup. It's the IMF, the European Central Bank, and then he said the Commission. And they've got the least influence. We're controlled by those bankers. I want to get away from that, and I don't want to be controlled by those people.
But you're going to be controlled by other people. You're going to be controlled by You're going to be controlled by WTO, or you're going to be controlled by whoever you do your deal with. I mean, this whole idea that once we leave all that, we can do whatever it is we want, whenever we want, just doesn't exist in this modern day world. But
I didn't say that.
Okay, but you're going to control yourself from somebody else. Now, Chris, hang on a second. Gisela, this whole idea, we're going to get to your, we've got quite a few callers to get through, but we're going to get to what you think should happen. But this whole idea from people from the Leave camp, you've had Nigel Farage sort of doing his dog whistles of saying, well, if the will of the people isn't listened to, there will be civil unrest. What do you make of these comments?
Well, I didn't pick up Jason to begin with when he talked people are lying. You see, I think we need to be really careful with our language here. Because if we're going to get in a position, well, you may not agree with them, but you know, no one side is the whole of the truth. And if you have democratic structures, mean that ever so often political parties ask the people, they cast their vote, and then they expect to implement it.
But can I make a quick parenthesis on that?
The unrest here is that people felt they went to the ballot box in large numbers, and now they see an establishment.
Might be ignored.
They see an establishment that is not implementing what they say.
But can I ask you something, Gisela? And the problem is very delicate here. The Advertising Standards Authority, right? If I put out an advert saying, drink this miracle potion and all your hair will grow back, if I can't back that up, I get into trouble. And again, I don't want to open this can of worms, but I just want to support what Jason said. If you've got people saying the day after the referendum is going to be the easiest deal in history, we hold all the cards, 350 million a week from the NHS, things that have demonstrably been proven to be untrue, do people also not have the right to be upset about that, about being misled with those claims?
And we had a chancellor who said that if you vote to leave, there were... No,
So
don't
now-
shake your
now
head.
you're doing
no,
whataboutery.
No, it's not whataboutery. Political campaigns, party manifestos, the whole process of fighting campaigns is that people make their various arguments, the voters listen to both sides, and in the end they make a decision. So what we've got now is a position that there's an assumption that those who voted to remain knew exactly what they voted for, and those who voted leave, you're saying, didn't. In Change Britain, we after the referendum, we tried to bring, the whole point was to try to bring both sides together, and we've been doing...
How successful have you been?
Well, both sides have entrenched by far
Exactly.
more. But the key thing is that all our polling and all the things show that people haven't substantially changed their mind over there.
That's your own polling.
That's your own polling, and I can
over
give you
2 years.
Yeah, but I
Okay,
can
let's
give
shall
you-
we share?
I can give you polling that was in the New Statesman today that says completely the opposite. Because Chris is still on the line, and I want to address his issue because I like Chris and he listens.
And we
every
are
week.
rerunning the referendum.
No,
The
we're
very-
not.
Yes,
We're not
we
going to rerun
are.
the referendum. But what do you make of comments? Do you think comments like Chris's comments are helpful in this discussion? That if the will of the people is ignored because the Brexit that they voted for has not been delivered, there will be civil unrest. Because I take issue with those things because I don't think we should ever be advocating that if you don't listen to the people, we'll take up to the streets and start smashing stuff.
Which is why I said both sides. So I don't think you should accuse the government of lying. You can say
Even
you
when they are?
disagree. You can say you disagree with them. I think to call for civil unrest is not the right way forward. I think a bit of respect on both sides and care. People who are in public places and Jason, so are you now. We're kind of public figures. Our language has to be measured.
Okay, I agree with that. Chris, thank you very much for your call. Always a pleasure to hear from you. Chris from Colchester. We're going to take a quick break. I'm asking the question. We're at the end game of Brexit. What do you think should happen next? 0344 499 1000 is the number you need, or you can tweet us at Talk Radio. Across the Hunter and Gisela Stuart, we are asking the question. Brexit seems to be at its final stretch. What do you want to see happen next? 0344 499 1000 is the number you need. Ryan has called from the New Forest. Welcome to the show, Ryan. What do you want to say?
Good afternoon. How you doing?
Very good, thank you, mate. What's your point?
Right, my point is, what if it's nothing to do with money for the people that voted out? I mean, obviously, there's always the economic slant put on, like we fell for lies. Like the thing I get thrown in my face is that I believe the side of a bus. I'll tell you, I did not read one thing of propaganda, one piece of advertising when it comes to this vote.
Okay. So why did you vote to leave?
I voted to leave because I've studied a lot of history, so I'm not pro-British Empire. I'm not pro-British. I'm very anti-racist. I'm not anything like that. I'm a bit special case, but I understand that. But the fact of the matter is I am fed up with people, basically what we'd call billionaires, people that have their own frameworks. We know this is how the money of the world runs, and we need to run economy through these people, shamefully enough, because we can't find any other way of doing it. But the fact of the matter is I wanted to break away from the ease of which all of that throws through. I'd rather, if anyone had to renegotiate, they actually do some work for a change rather than just sit there lavishing in their rich lives through the existing avenues that they already get their money through. And I thought that it was time for a bit of hard work, time for a bit of maybe galvanising the nation together and maybe forging something slightly different, even if it meant going through a bit of economic turmoil. Because let's face it, 2008 was difficult. It happens anyway, so why shouldn't we just try something else? I mean, it's just...
So you mean to tell me that you voted to leave the largest economic bloc in the world after the 2008 crash, accepting the fact that you are...
No, not because of that, no, because that was
Right.
evidence that it doesn't necessarily always work, that they can just crash economies whenever they want, or who can, or maybe they just crash on their own. I'm not necessarily, one of them conspiracy theorists, but the fact is I'm a rationalist. Rationally, I would have liked to have been away and tried something different. That's why I voted out. Nothing to do with economy, nothing to do with lies.
But you mentioned that... I'm confused. Jason?
Okay, yeah, okay, that's fine, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is one of the points that we've talked about. So many people voted for different kinds of Brexit,
Sure.
and they all voted for different reasons. So when people talk about sort of 17.4 million people voted to leave the EU, they didn't. They all voted for their own personal reasons. Ryan and I totally get yours. You want to try something new. But when you realise what the consequences are of trying something new for you and your family, did you specifically vote to have the government appoint a minister for food supplies? That's a minister for rationing. That has never happened in the United Kingdom outside of wartime. We're now at peace. And as a result of the government's policy to leave the European Union, we've appointed that. We've appointed what they call REDs, Resilience and Emergency Departments in local authorities. These are new positions that are being advertised on the government website. If you look at some of the things on the government's own technical papers about what it means to try something a bit different, it's absolute devastation is what you're looking at for you and your family. What if you can't get food in the supermarkets? I was going to ask, go on, Ryan.
Oh, no, sorry. Well, I was going to say, well, I understand. Okay, there could be certain things that might happen. There's a lot of scaremongering. I mean, like you say, sometimes when countries go into, certain war situations, they don't necessarily always, have to. If you took away the bombs, maybe they wouldn't be as devastated. So you could probably get through things. People can ration a little bit and get through it. I'm actually not that bothered about that. To see what we could then forward. But the flip side of that is also, let me just say, if we are leaving the biggest, trade bloc in the world, and then they are then going to flip around and hold us to ransom, why would I want to be around people like that anyway?
How are they holding you to ransom, Ryan?
Well, because we're trying to leave and they won't give us a decent deal. Why would you hold a whole nation of people to ransom?
What makes you think they're not giving you a decent deal?
Well, this is what the whole conversation is about. And if there's a decent deal, who cares? Why am I even here?
Hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. All the EU have said you can have a free trade agreement like Canada, right? But that means you're going to have a border in Ireland or a border in the Irish Sea, or you can be part of the single market and the customs union. They've been very open from the very beginning of what the deals available to us are. Now, we are trying to leave, but saying, do you know what, we like that part, we don't like this part, or we like the other part, but we don't like that part. And they have every right to say, do you know what, we are not going to change the way this whole infrastructure works just because you want to leave and you don't like it.
But then they are quite welcome to do that. And then in which case, then I don't want to be around, wouldn't want to be part of people like that anyway. Why would you be part of a bloc that holds countries to ransom and puts their people through economic turmoil?
Sorry, Ryan. They're not holding us to ransom because the EU are not doing this just because of the Treaty of the European Union or the Treaty for the Functioning of the European Union. It's a rules-based organisation. The UK helped write a lot of the rules. We had a Scottish guy even wrote Article 50 itself.
So you can't write new rules then?
Well, they are bound by the current rules of the current treaties of the EU.
So you can't write new rules. That's what I'm saying. Is this what I'm saying? If you say that no, you cannot write new rules, then I'll say I don't want to be part of a non-progressive institution anyway.
They are also tied by another 60-plus countries around the world because they have other international treaties with other countries like Canada, United States of America, South Korea.
So they can't rewrite either. So we can't just rewrite.
You're talking about
what I'm saying.
For 40 years it would take to rewrite them all.
Okay.
No, it took 40 years to write them. Not necessarily. People are scared to do hard work.
Okay.
That is the case of this. I'm sorry.
Ryan, we've got to move on, but Paul on Twitter has said, current caller seems unaware that recent EU laws could make financial transparency law in UK. Leaving means that financial big guys you want to escape will have more control. But thank you for your call, Ryan. That was Ryan there from the New Forest. Do give us a call again. Want to hear your thoughts. What do you want to see happen next? 0344 499 1000 is the number that you need. Gisela.
Alexis.
You ran, you were part of the Vote Leave campaign. How do you think it's gone so far?
Well, as the Irish would have said, I wouldn't have started from here. I think, okay, it's taken much longer than I thought it would. Mm-hmm. I didn't think that the European Union would achieve its strategic goals as completely as it seemed to. I mean, if you look at it at the moment, all the movement has come from the United Kingdom. Michel Barnier, who I negotiated with for 15 months in a previous life, has achieved the basic things, which says leaving is made as complicated, as drawn out, and as painful as possible.
No, I'm sorry. Go on. Wait.
It was
Jason, the battle of the summer, David Davis called
Jason,
it.
Jason, you're going to get your chance to come back, but let Gisela finish the point. Yeah.
And the key question is one which Mervyn King, the former governor of the Bank of England, said recently. He said, you have to ask yourself how the world's sixth largest economy, with a reputation for political stability and administrative capacity, has managed to get itself into such a mess. Mm-hmm. And because we have, and it's because too many people actually, were reluctant to really implement this. I think the focus over the next week is to really go back saying the key negotiating power, which Theresa May still has got, is our divorce bill and the money. And
Okay. Well, Jason, go on then. Go on. I can't keep them at bay any longer.
This what they're calling the divorce bill is the UK's agreed financial obligations, financial commitments, things that we've agreed to pay for out into the future. If we refuse to pay that 39 billion quid, they will see us in the International Court in The Hague within a week. Because that's what we've committed to pay.
So if there's no deal, then there's no money, as far as I'm concerned. The Article 50,
irresponsible.
Article 50 requires a duty of goodwill and cooperation, and I expect that from both sides.
Yeah,
so therefore, I want to see a bit of goodwill.
Go back 2 years, Gisela, for a second. I mean, two years ago, they agreed what the schedule was. What's contained in the withdrawal agreement?
Dropping my pens and everything.
Three things.
Go on your Twitter thing, and you look at Christopher Mayer, a former ambassador to the United States, and Christopher Mayer said, take Northern Ireland out of the withdrawal agreement. You can actually get a deal.
He wasn't part of the negotiations.
Neither were you, neither am I.
David Davis
just talk what should be.
David Davis was. There was a negotiation a year and a half ago when we first invoked Article 50. David Davis called it the Battle of the Summer. This is what's going to be contained in the withdrawal agreement, and this is what's not. There's two parts with WA. I'll keep it short. Two parts to the WA. The first part is the technical legal separation of the United Kingdom from the European Union. And there's three pieces in that first part. One is the protecting the rights of EU citizens in the UK and vice versa. Second is the financial settlement. And thirdly is a permanent backstop to make sure there's never a border put back on the island of Ireland. That's the legal piece. We have to get those three pieces agreed. And we agreed that's what was going to be in the WA 18 months ago. The second part is a political declaration about some kind of direction for future trade agreements, whether it's Canada plus, whether it's Norway, whether it's friction-free trade, whatever it happens to be. But that's not part of the legal separation. Mm-hmm. Only those three pieces.
Let's take another caller. Richard is called from East Sussex. Welcome to the show, Richard. What do you want to say?
Oh, hi. Thanks. Hi, Jason. We do communicate from time to time. So I'm a GP, and I'm extremely worried about what's going to happen next year. And all the leavers who troll me on Twitter and Facebook can have another go at me. But my main concerns are that financially, whatever happens, we are going to be poorer. And we don't know how long we're going to be poorer for. And it isn't just me. I mean, I'm going to retire in a few years' time. I'll be fine. But it's about my kids. It's about my patients. It's about other people I know very well in the area who aren't in as privileged position as I am. And I just can't believe that we are continuing towards this car crash without any right to be able to even pause it. I mean, I'm not talking about overturning the vote for whatever reason.
What benefit would you get from pausing it, Richard?
We should have spent 5 years doing this. You know, whatever reason the Tories decide to trigger Article 50 in such a hurry, there are lots of rumours about why that might be, but there was no way they could do this in 2 years.
Gisela, would you have been a fan of what Richard is saying? Do you think, and I respect that your views and mine completely differ, but do you think that perhaps Article 50 should have been triggered after the British side, i.e. the government, had got its ducks in a row of what they wanted? Because it feels like they triggered it, then they had a panic as to what they want. They still don't quite know what they want. So maybe Richard's got a point that we're not talking about overturning the referendum, but the fact that it's taken 2 years. Chequers is not quite right, but it's the first time the government kind of went there and said, this is what we need. Do you think that perhaps there should have been a longer conversation about what Brexit would look like before triggering Article 50?
Let's not rewrite history here. Jeremy Corbyn actually called on the government immediately after the referendum to trigger Article 50. Second thing is, it was the entire Parliament, both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. And I condemn both Jeremy and the Parliament for doing that. Okay. But what do you think?
And one of the reasons why I thought March next year made sense is actually to do with the European Union elections the following year. And I thought if you go into negotiations, you want to negotiate with a group of people who remain permanent and stable. So therefore, by May next year, we will have a new European Parliament and a new Commission. And I thought any of the negotiations should be completed and brought to an end with our current set of people. So there was an absolute logic to triggering and ending with a 29th of March next year date.
Good point. Richard?
Jason may even agree with me on that.
I was nodding. I understand the logic.
We all agree. Richard, as a GP, what can you tell us about the impact that you will see?
So just a tiny little reminder about the fuel protests. So we had 8 days where we couldn't get fuel. I mean, I fortunately had people who were, because of jobs I was doing, I was an emergency doctor attending road accidents, etc. So I had access to fuel. But within 8 days, we had district nurses couldn't visit. We had people who I was being asked to change their anti-epilepsy medication. That was just one thing, fuel, for 8 days. Now, we are talking about absolute upheaval. And Gisela can say, oh, it fitted next year, but why couldn't it have been the following Parliament? I mean, I used to run an organisation within health, and if the people, my equivalent of civil servants, had come with this, not even half-baked plan, I'd have told them, right, this gets stopped now. We're not going to say we're not going to do it, but we're going to go away and actually work this out properly. At the moment, I don't think I can trust anybody because this is all about politics now, and it's about upholding the vote. And it's got nothing to do with the well-being of the country. It's an absolute nightmare.
Thank you, Richard. Gisela, you've got 45 seconds.
No, Richard, I was a health minister in Gold Command during the fuel strike. I knew we were literally within hours of dialysis nurses not being able to deliver. But that was brought on by government not understanding the supply chain of fuel. We had some strikers in Lossiemouth, and the country came to a standstill because we hadn't done proper resilience planning.
OK, Gisela. Richard, thank you for calling. That's Gisela, that's Richard from East Sussex. We are going to be back on the same subject after the news. We're going to take a quick break, but I still want to hear from you. Brexit is on its final end. What would you like to see happen next? 0344 499 1000 is the number you need. You could tweet us at Talk Radio. Here on Talk Radio with me, I have Gisela, Stuart and Jason Hunter in the studio. And I am asking you, Brexit, it seems to be in its final stages. I mean, we're going to have, Theresa May's going to come down with some sort of deal because it has to be voted for. Remember that meaningful vote in Parliament, which she promised Parliament would get. That has to happen sometime in November. So she's got to get her ducks in a row. I mean, in days. So what do you want to see happen? 0344 499 1000 is the number you need, or you could tweet us at Talk Radio. So this is where I think we're at. And I'm interested to get both your opinions. Theresa May has decided that she's going to stick with Chequers, although apparently I think the word Chequers has been banned from any speeches or sort of any press releases because everybody hates it. Remainers hate it, Leavers hate it, everyone hates it apart from Theresa May. And we're kind of almost there with everything, with the rights of people, with the withdrawal agreement, the rights of the people, the settlement, but it's the backstop that is the problem. And I'm going to be very, very simplistic here, and Jason, you're here to slap my wrist if I get stuff wrong. But the way I see it is the backstop is what happens if you have no deal. The backstop is there to guarantee, you're basically making a promise that you will never have a border between Northern Ireland and Ireland.
Yep.
That is the backstop. And the big problem we have with the backstop is twofold. In order for there not to be a border in Ireland, Northern Ireland and Ireland, you have to be part of the customs union and or the single market, which means that you can't strike your own trade deals.
We're only talking about Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland can stay inside the customs union single market,
but then
the rest of the UK can do what it wants.
Exactly, but then if you do that, you have a border in the Irish Sea.
Well, there kind of already is. I mean, animal foods, animals that
they get checked
back and forth. The sanitary and phytosanitary checks are already made back and forth between Scotland and Northern Ireland and between the island of Ireland and the rest of Great Britain.
Okay,
so that already happens.
So what is the sticking point for Theresa May right now? Because everyone's talking about the problem is the definition, not the definition of the backstop, but the time that the backstop is enforced. At the moment, Theresa May is sort of saying, well, it's going to be there until the technology is available for us not to need it, not to have that. A lot of people are saying that technology is unicorn technology. It never exists. And Brexiteers, hardcore Brexiteers, we've heard that Andrea Leadsom, Priti Patel, Penny Mordaunt are saying that unless they get a date that backstop will end, which then, of course, it ceases to become a backstop. That's where I'm getting very confused. They will not vote for it. If they don't vote for it, then we've got all sorts of different problems. So tell us a little bit, why is this backstop? Because Gisela mentioned earlier that if you took Northern Ireland out of the equation, then actually the deal would be quite easy.
Yeah. I mean, the reason this is complicated is because the Irish situation is unique on the planet, as far as I know. I can't think of another place in the world where you've got that same situation. And what we've had since the Good Friday Agreement was concluded, and we sat down with one of the authors of the Belfast Agreement when we were in Belfast recently, and the situation over there is so much better. We cannot even risk putting a border or any types of checks or controls back on that border over there. You put a camera up, a farmer's going to shoot it down overnight. You put a customs officer on the border.
Okay, so we've agreed that a border won't go up. I'm going to come to you, Gisela, in a second, because I think, well, you have different opinions on this bit, let's say. But what has Theresa May got to do at the moment?
Well, if she wants the withdrawal agreements to come back with on Thursday next week, then she has to accept the EU's proposal, which is a permanent backstop, saying that both parties commit never to put a border back on the island of Ireland, and that there will be slightly increased checks between Northern Ireland and the rest of GB. Now, the government are playing stupid political games with this. People saying, oh, no, it's got to have a date in it. They probably haven't even read. I wouldn't expect them to have read the detail of why a permanent backstop needs to be there. I bet you they haven't even read the templated withdrawal agreement that's already written. Theresa May has to accept that. She cannot accept it because she's backed up by the DUP. And the DUP opposed the Good Friday Agreement in the first place. They opposed the Belfast Agreement being signed. They are as crazy as you can find a politician on the British Isles, you'll find them in the DUP.
But I think the one thing that they are most opposed to is a border on the Irish Sea.
Well, they say that we don't want to be treated any differently to the rest of Great Britain. And yet they've got their own LGBT rights laws, they've got their own parliament, they've got their own government most of the time, they've got their own corporation tax levels, they've got different laws on gay marriage. There are so many different things that they do differently already to the rest of GB. They are treated differently, and the DUP need to suck it up and accept the fact that the withdrawal agreement is the best for everybody, not just for their supporters.
I know we've got a guest lined up, but before we go to that, Gisela, surely this isn't the situation you expected to find yourself after 2 years, because you're faced with an agreement that effectively may see the UK, either the whole of the UK or just Northern Ireland, be part of a customs union. Where do you think Theresa May can go to deliver on the promise of the referendum?
Let's just be clear. If we remain in the customs union, then we haven't left.
Yeah.
The second thing is we cannot be in a position where the European Union requires to undermine the integrity of the United Kingdom as part of leaving. So, Northern Ireland already has got a different currency, and the one thing which I would say is that even the WTO agrees that because of the Good Friday Agreement, you can do certain things because it's based on a political agreement. And the one thing over the last 20 years in Northern Ireland is we've reached agreement not because people use inflammatory language and shout from the rooftops. They reach it because people of goodwill come together and talk. And I think the Taoiseach and the Prime Minister and the DUP will have to actually focus on making that happen, because it can be done. If people like David Trimble, one of the architects of the Good Friday Agreement, are absolutely convinced that you can have technical solutions to that without increasing the friction on the border, then I think it can be done.
Okay, we were in. Sorry, let me just comment on this. We sat on the border and we talked to a number of people on the border itself and close to it. We went down to Dublin and we spoke to some people down there. Any kind of technology that you put up there, there's if you put one camera up, it'll be shot down overnight. It won't be there the next day. Any kind of technology.
Okay.
If you put a customs guy there, he's going to need the Royal Oslo Constabulary to protect him.
But you've already admitted earlier, Jason, that we already do some. The question is where you do the checking.
But you do them between the Irish Sea
and the island of Ireland.
But coming back to your backstop, it cannot be indefinite. It cannot be indeterminate.
But then it's not a backstop if it's not indefinite.
No, but you can have a backstop which says, and this is the time limit with which we get the technical details into place to make it happen. Because otherwise, it is Hotel California.
Okay, I need to get our guest on, which please welcome to the show, Clive Betts. He's the Labour MP of Sheffield South East. Welcome to the show, Clive.
Hello. Hi.
Clive, I I've been asking the listeners the same question. I suppose I'm going to ask you the same question, is what do you expect, or what would you like to see happen next from Theresa May? Because it's all getting quite tight. We're sort of getting to the end of the line right now.
Yes, well, I mean, there's two different questions there. What would I like to see? I'd like to see the UK stay in the customs union and retain much of the rules of the single market, because that's good for manufacturing, and Sheffield is having a big boost to advanced manufacturing, high-tech manufacturing. We're leading the way on that, and we don't want those firms which are developing, including Boeing, coming to open a new plant in Sheffield in the next couple of weeks. We don't want them to go away because of all the rules, regulations and customs barriers that will be created without that position. What do I expect to happen? I haven't got a clue. I don't think Theresa May's got a clue. I think that makes two of us.
But apparently, we are being told by various news outlets that there are up to 30 Labour MPs who have said that they will vote with. They have been approached by Tory whips, and they will vote for Theresa May's plan. Are you one of those 30 who's been tapped on the shoulder?
Yeah, because we don't know what it is. I mean, clearly it's not going to be the Chequers Agreement, because the EU's already said they don't accept many parts of the Chequers Agreement, so that's not the plan. We don't know what the plan is, so it's difficult for anyone to say they would vote for something which they don't know what it is. And, you just said there, Tory whips. Well, the Tory whips would say that, wouldn't they? I mean, that's their job, to go around sowing discord amongst the Labour MPs. I've certainly not talked to colleagues who are in that position. And I just want to pick up on the conversation we were having before I came on about these technical solutions. Well, I believe a technical solution when I see it, quite frankly. There isn't one now. There isn't a technical solution to solve the problem of a border, if we're not in the same customs union, a border between the Republic of Ireland and the north of Ireland. And the idea, therefore, you have a time limit when that technical solution will become available. But what happens if it doesn't in that time limit? So what's the point of a time limit when you've got absolutely no guarantee or certainty the solution which you say is going to happen is actually going to happen?
Well, also, the backstop to me is like a safety net. So you go to a trapeze artist and you go, for your act, the really difficult bit that you do every night and you're going to be doing for the next 2 years, you're going to have the safety net there for 3 months. After that, we're going to take it away, and if you fall, splat. Gisela, Clive saying that he wants to be part of the customs union because he's worried about manufacturing and his Sheffield consistency. What do you say to Clive?
Well, if you stay in the customs union and the single market, then we haven't left. But Clive, surely the companies you deal with are actually more concerned about global supply chains. I think we're still talking about this if the trade was just within the European Union. It's, BAE Systems and others, they deal with the whole world. And there are big problems that actually the EU is putting up barriers which are not very helpful. Don't you think if you look on a 5, 10, 15 years perspective, the rest of the world is growing and Europe is putting up barriers against the rest of the world, which actually won't be helpful?
That's not true.
Let Clive come back. Let Clive come back, and then Jason.
The EU's got trade deals with many countries, and I think we'll get better trade deals with the rest of the world if we're part of a group of countries, and the bargaining power there compared with one country, the UK, going by itself. And it's all very well things will all be all right in 10 or 15 years' time. I'm worried about the here and now. Mm-hmm. I'm worried about what Boeing's saying to me. I'm worried about what Airbus is saying. I'm worried what BMW is doing, Honda, Jaguar Land Rover, all companies which are important to the future of this country, saying they're going to be producing less, their future's at risk, they're really worried about jobs for the future. If we have a no deal and pull out, not being part of a customs arrangement, not being part of arrangements for the single market. That's what all those countries are saying to us.
Jason, we hear that a lot about the EU, that they're putting barriers up, and they are the rest of the world is doing so brilliantly, and the EU are sort of stagnating and actually competing against the rest of the world, and we're better off outside of the EU because we can join all these emerging economies.
Great emerging economies, that's terrific. If you take all of the countries in Africa, all of them, with all of their natural resources, oil, gas, diamonds, gold, everything, add it all up together as a total GDP, it's less than half of the economy of France. And France is right on our doorstep. The EU 27 are a huge trade bloc, and we do a significant amount of trade with them. But the EU also have another 34 trade agreements and trade cooperation agreements with other countries around the world, another 60 plus countries. So that's 87 countries around the world where our supply chains downstream with our customer base and upstream where our materials come from. Parts and raw materials come into the country, they come into Sheffield. You know, we might. Like Ireland's a great example. They produce dairy, and you've got milk coming out of the north or the south. It crosses the border. It's turned into butter. It's sent to the south. It's wrapped in sort of packaging. It's then shipped back to the north. Then it's shipped through the United Kingdom back into the EU to our customers over there. And the supply chains that the United Kingdom businesses have are totally integrated, not just within the EU 27, but with these other 60 countries around the world. The EU represents, they are the most successful organization on the planet for agreeing free trade agreements. They've got more free trade agreements than any other nation on the planet. Just the one with Japan covers 1/3 of global GDP. To say that we've got all these opportunities with these growing economies elsewhere, they might have double-digit 11, 12, 13% growth, but the total GDP of a country is like $300. You grow that by 20% even. How many £20,000 cars are they going to buy from the United Kingdom post-Brexit? We can have a free trade deal with them. Great.
Clive, one quick question before I let you go. We are, the people's vote as a phrase. It's sort of it's bandied about at the moment. It's gaining more and more traction. As a Labour MP, what would you be behind a people's vote, or would you prefer if we go to an election? Because from what we're hearing, this week could be make or break for Theresa May. She might stand to lose 4 or 5 ministers from her cabinet. Who knows? There might not be a government by midweek.
Well, sorry, Chris, before you answer that, before you answer that, bear in mind, in Liverpool at the Labour conference, 86% of Labour members said that they would support a second vote on the final deal.
Well, let Chris answer that question.
Yeah, and actually, I had a party meeting the other day and got emails from people who couldn't get to the meeting. Overwhelmingly, with 1 or 2 exceptions, people wanted a second vote. That was really quite, and mine's in a very mixed constituency, and there were people who were Momentum at one end, who were Blair supporters at the other, right across the spectrum of Labour opinion. Now, if the government falls, of course, we have a general election. I suppose one of the concerns, and we're getting rid of the government, would be absolutely wonderful from my constituency's point of view. And we've been putting out leaflets about universal credit today, which is going to hammer people in the next few weeks. The problem is, if we have a general election, will we actually get a clear decision in terms of MPs elected about what they want to see? That's the real worry, I think. We could end up back in the same position, and nobody wants to be there. If Parliament can't sort it out, then the fallback has to be a second vote, I think.
Okay, Clive, thank you very much for joining us. That's Clive Betts, MP for Sheffield South East. Gisela, you heard Clive there. He's worried. He's worried about his constituents. He's worried about now. I don't recall any of the Leave campaign saying, look, vote for this, vote to leave, and in 50, I mean, Jacob Rees-Mogg, I think, put 50 years that we might see the benefits. Nobody said vote leave, and in 15 years' time you might be better off.
No, I mean, we're really conflating a whole lot of arguments here. Let's just the first one about with industry and the supply chains. All those arguments I heard about us joining the euro. If you really want frictionless trade, stop shaking your hand, Jason. It is true. if you really want truly frictionless trade, then we would have joined the single currency, because then you wouldn't have had the friction of the currency exchange.
It's not a today argument. But the question is, here we are today. What do we do about it?
And the same arguments are coming back. When I come back and look for the car industry, a part of the reason why a lot of the car industry people aren't buying is because we had some wonderful EU regulations on diesel and diesel emissions, and people now are buying diesel cars.
It's not about the lack of sales. 77% of the cars that are made in Sunderland are sold to the other EU countries. They build them in the UK with an integrated supply chain. It's not a case of them not being able to sell their cars. 77% of the ones they build in Sunderland are sold into the EU.
And why are they here? They're here because we've got the skills base, the investment. BMW is here because actually the British, when they're buying BMW, the value added is much more. That will continue.
But all these people are telling BMW, Airbus, Nissan, Honda, all those manufacturers are telling you that if they lose the just-in-time deliveries which rely on frictionless trade, they're in deep trouble. Are you saying to me that is Project Fear?
No, what I'm saying to you, therefore, all our energy should go into as to where you have the checks that you can continue the supply chain. But can I just say something else? If the current problem is uncertainty, which should not drag on, and Clive Betts made the argument that a general election may not give us a resolution to this. What if the people's vote doesn't give you one either, and you've got the same result, and all you've done is just extended the thing? So the question is, let your energy into getting a deal which is perfectly possible to be done rather than scaremongering.
Okay, well, you think it's perfectly possible to be done. I just can't see it. And those of you who listen to me know I'm a Brexit nut. I try and read both sides of the argument. I just simply cannot see it. Can you? 0344 499 1000 is the number you need. We'll be straight back after this.
We'll get you talking.
The more astute of you who listen to the show on a regular basis will notice that we now have a boxing ring sound before each part starts. And I can tell you that Hayley producer and Stuart Stuart who pushes the buttons, are very, very pleased with themselves. Every time I didn't notice for the first half an hour, they just told me. Well done, team. Yes. Boxing, what round are we now? Round 4. Okay, here we go. Peter has called in from Northern Ireland. Excellent. Peter, welcome to the show.
Good. Hi, Alexis. How are you?
I'm very well. So, Peter, we've got to ask you, what do you make of the whole situation? Do you think it is even feasible to talk about a border going up between Northern Ireland and Ireland?
Alexis, I mean, first of all, let me say I'm phoning up, and I usually never phone the radio. And believe it or not, it's the first time I've actually listened to talk radio. But two of your commentators, and please forgive me, I don't know their names.
It's Gisela Stuart and Jason Hunter.
Well, Gisela made a point there about Northern Ireland having a different currency from the rest of the United Kingdom. I just have to clarify that is not the case. It's more like Scotland, where it actually is sterling. But those notes are printed by a different bank. So like the Bank of Scotland, we have the Ulster Bank and Bank of Northern Ireland. So it's the same currency as the rest of the United Kingdom.
But printed by a different bank.
I didn't mean
exactly.
that. I knew.
Well, that's what you said. The second thing was this. The gentleman said that if if there was something put on the border and there was somebody there guarding it, the Royal Ulster Constabulary would have to be down there to guard them. Just to clarify the point that the Royal Ulster Constabulary haven't been around for over 20 years. Now, the point I'm making by that isn't just to be pedantic. It's this. It's the fact that the reason the Royal Ulster Constabulary aren't around anymore is because part of the Good Friday Agreement was that the Royal Ulster Constabulary's name was changed because it was so sensitive to the nationalist members of the community. And that, in a nutshell, really describes Northern Ireland. And if you're considering putting any sort of border up here, you do not know where those consequences will lead. And please forgive me, but when you're sitting on the other side of the Irish Sea, it's a lot easier to look at that and think of it in black and white. But Northern Ireland is anything but black and white. Now, the unfortunate position we have is that we have the Democratic Unionist Party. And I come from a unionist background, but I would much, much prefer to be part of Europe than see the UK go alone. I think it's utter madness for the UK. But the unfortunate thing is I think the DUP should have grasped this as a perfect opportunity to put Northern Ireland in a wonderful position where it had the best of both worlds. And unfortunately, we do not have the politicians that have the foresight or the idea or the imagination of seeing what that advantage can be. All they do is they see things as something that they lose is something that the other side gains. And I think that's what's now happening in the rest of the United Kingdom as far as Brexit is concerned.
Peter, do you see the DUP possibly capitulating to a border in the Irish Sea? What do you think that the public mood about that?
It's all about losing face. Oh, don't get me wrong. I think you've got to realise that there's a vast majority of people in Northern Ireland who just want to get on with their lives and who really just want to see their kids go to school and have a good education and have a good opportunity and a good economy. And I personally think the best thing within Northern Ireland is if it looks to a wider Europe. I think too many countries at the moment are looking inward rather than looking outward. And Northern Ireland certainly gains from the idea of being part of Europe rather than just seeing itself as Irish or British, you know?
Peter, I very, very much appreciate your call. I'm only moving on because we've got Harry to speak to, but thank you very much for your call. That was Peter in Northern Ireland. It's great when you're talking about something and someone, listening who's there picks up the phone. So thank you. And that's the first time he's listened to Talk Radio and called a radio station. So I'm going home happy today. Harry has called us from Portsmouth. Welcome to the show, Harry.
Oh, yeah. Hello, Alexis. Before Jason interrupts me...
He won't. He won't.
Right, good. Put that sock on his mic. There's a chap called Bill Payton was on the TV with Jason a few weeks ago. He's rather a good chap to get on to put a counter position to Jason.
Okay. I tell you what, we'll give the name to my producer and we'll get him on.
Professor.
Well, if he's a professor, he must know what he's talking about.
I think he's a Nottingham University professor. Jason knows him because he was trying
I
to
do know. David, you're talking about Professor David something, the economist for Brexit.
Payton. Bill Payton, I thought the name was. Don't confuse it, Jason.
Okay, this is not making fascinating radio. We're all arguing about a name. But Harry,
David, ring us up.
But Harry, what economists for Brexit? See, I've got a problem there, Harry. And I know Gisela will disagree with me, but if I look at a subject and 99% of people say one thing and 1% say another, I kind of going to go with the 99%. I don't know, call me a bit of a sheep, but economists for Brexit seem to be in a very, very, very tiny minority.
Well, all right. Let's face it.
Frankly, Harry, I was expecting a bit more of a fight there.
No, let's face it. Those who shout the loudest always get their own way, don't they? Which is the tack that Jason's side is coming from. I want to mention something to you.
Go on.
Boeing up in Sheffield, you've just had Clive Betts, one of the Sheffield MPs on.
That's right.
Now, Boeing will get very annoyed and they'll talk to Mr. Trump over there and they'll say, look, sort this EU out. They're trying to block our products. So there's something for Clive Betts to really consider.
Hang on, Harry, don't mind if I interrupt you. How is the EU blocking their products? Boeing have got their factories here. We have taken a decision to leave the EU. Therefore, we lose frictionless trade with the EU, which Boeing are reliant on. How is it the EU's fault?
Well, no, Clive Betts is putting over the insinuation that it's all going to go badly for Boeing. It won't, because Boeing is a world player.
So Harry, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but the man who runs Boeing has said that there will be a problem. Are you saying that you know better than he does?
No, I don't know better than Jason either, because he's gone into it. But the fact is, I remember back in '88.
Yeah.
I read a magazine, which was a trucking magazine, and it said one day we'll have burger buns, you know, the famous burger buns, coming over from Belgium. And I thought, and last week, what happens? I find out that Pret have been importing their part-baked bread from, I think, Belgium or France.
Right.
So why do we need to trade over through the Channel Tunnel, a very expensive crossing, for something like burger buns? You see, Jason can never answer that. He keeps quoting you trade with near people nearest you.
Well, do you know what? Jason is right here, and I am going to put him on the spot. Talk to me about burger buns, Jason.
Do you know, I haven't done a lot of research into burger buns.
I bet you haven't.
I do a lot of research into international trade. And if it's more economical for a business in the UK, I mean, a lot of foreign companies invested in the UK. And when you look at the total amount, it's over £1 trillion, £1.1 trillion of foreign direct investment in the UK. These are foreign companies that have come over here. They've built a factory, built a chain of shops or whatever it is. They've created jobs for British people in retail, in manufacturing, in industry, across the board. We've talked about a number of the big ones today. Pré-Manger is another one. And, you know, if it's easy for them to buy their products from Scotland or Wales or Southern Ireland or France or Belgium, why does it matter? That's the great thing about being in the largest economic bloc on the planet, is you can maximize your efficiencies and build the business.
Yeah, but you're the globalist, aren't you? Why not bring the burger buns from China? They could do them far cheaper. Plane them over. You don't go the whole hog, Jason.
That's more expensive.
Plan. That's what the Brexiteers' idea is to say, well, let's leave this big economic bloc right on our doorstep, and we can have new trade deals with places like China, Australia, New Zealand, and Japan, and all over the other places in the world. A lot of places we already have trade deals with. So what we're doing is we're going to make everything more expensive. Is that what you voted for?
Well, Harry, thank you very much for your call. That was Harry from Portsmouth. Gisela, I've got a question here from you from Dennis. From it doesn't say where he's from. He's on Twitter. He says, "Ask Gisela, RE the people's vote. If she was not scared of one, it would reinforce leave, or if she worried that it would be overwhelmingly stay." So I think the point Dennis is trying to make is, what would be so wrong to go back to the people with more information and the decision that you get, if you get a sort of a big enough margin from one to the other, to really give a mandate to the Brexiteers or to reverse the whole thing?
We're parliamentary democracy, and about the last 7 years or so, we've started to have referendums. Mm-hmm. And we've had 4 in which the British people made some very rational decisions. We decided to give more power to Wales. That was on a turnout of less than just over 50% and a margin of 0.7%, but everybody accepted that. Scotland decided to remain part of the United Kingdom. We decided not to change the voting system. And the 4th one was the European Union referendum, where a Prime Minister said, it's a once-in-a-generation decision. I will do whatever you tell me to do. 72% of the people came out to vote. 17.4 million voted one way, and both sides will have had a whole bag of reasons why they did. And the reason why I'm saying you will undermine democracy if then you suddenly say, oh, well, but we didn't like what you said. And if all the reasons at the moment why investment and things is, say, we need to end the uncertainty, that would just be prolonged. And it wasn't just the referendum. You then had a general election where the 2 main parties had in their manifesto a commitment to implement the result, and Parliament overwhelmingly voted for triggering Article 50. I think you're then into really strange territory.
Just to touch on that, Parliament didn't vote to trigger Article 50. What the House of Commons voted for was to give Theresa May permission to invoke Article 50 if she wanted to. It's on her head, and there are various legal challenges about Article 50 and the way it was invoked, because Theresa May did not make that. She had no power to make the decision.
I tell you, as a former MP, when you go into vote there, what that was is saying we are triggering Article 50.
Sure.
If they did not want to have it done.
But Gisela, my question to you is, and you said, we've agreed before the show, we're not going to unpick the referendum. That's not why I'm asking you that question, but with a country that is so divided, and as much as you've tried on your side with Change Britain, and as much as I've tried on my side, I don't become to a political group, but doing this radio show, Jason does his bit. It seems to me that actually the result is people are getting more and more entrenched in their own points of view. And actually, I sort of share your fear of what you mentioned earlier after Clive's call, that if we have a general election, I think it's going to be another hung parliament. And if we have a people's vote, I'm not quite sure that you're going to get a clearer result than you did before. I don't know, but I think we stand that danger. But my question to you is not because I want to undermine the referendum, but I cannot see any other way to actually take a decision where everyone's going to be happier than we are now.
But it's not. But let me turn this question on its head and say all the things which have led to people voting to leave the European Union, all the divisions, and there are real divisions between north of the M25 belt, within the regions of England in a sense, all those things which have led to the deep divisions. Are any of those resolved by another vote, or are you only going to even more deeply entrench those divisions? I think politics is about trying to find common ground.
None of those reasons can be resolved by leaving the European Union either, because you're going to create a bigger problem for these situations. And the reason people voted to give David Cameron a bloody nose in the first place, some of them, some people voted for something else, and all of the issues that the British people have as a result of the Westminster government.
No, the key issue, people wanted to be able to remove their government, vote those in, and they can't do that in the European Union. And they now expect their government to deliver.
Okay, I need to go. We've got 2 callers called Peter, so this is going to get confusing, but let's go to Peter in Wimbledon first. Peter, welcome to the show. What's your point?
I've got a few points. The first point, the answer to the question why Brexiteers are so verbally against the people's vote is, and the main reason is, they won't be able to sell the same lies they sold to us before the referendum. And one of the very famous Brexiteers, who was our chief negotiator, who spent just 4 hours negotiating with his counterpart after 2 years.
Master negotiator David Davis?
Yes, he's once said that if democracy can't change its mind, it ceases to be a democracy.
He did say that.
What we're dealing with here is I can agree with the people on the Brexit side that you're going to create a massive division, but we're only going to create massive divisions in society with those people who are willing to eat grass just to kick the foreigners out. And they are in a very, very much minority. People are more informed now, and we now need a second vote because now we know much, much more what we knew before the referendum. The Brexit was overall a biggest con in the political life of this country, and we need to stand up to it. And my main point again is the only reason Brexiteers are against it because they know they won't be able to sell the same lies to us again. They have to come up with the new ones, and there's not much lies left because people know much, much more than you before the referendum took place.
Okay, Peter, I'm only moving on because I've got the other Peter hanging on the line and I'm running out of time. Peter in Lancaster, but originally says here from Northern Ireland. Welcome to the show, Peter. What do you want to say?
Oh, hi there. So obviously I'm originally from Northern Ireland and I was just wondering, just questions there. Basically, so I grew up and there was a lot of bloodshed and murders, bombs, etc. When I was growing up, my father owned a bar and it was bombed and there was bombs in the town that I lived at. And there are people there that are just chomping at the bit really to get back to some of the old badness that was there. And I was just looking to know, does anybody think that a return, like Brexit, is it worth a return to bloodshed for people to be murdered? Because there is a good possibility that it would be happen.
Okay.
Would the Brexiteers still be happy that there has been bloodshed and murder and this has cost lives?
Okay, I think this is one for Gisela here. Do you think it's worth the even the remote possibility that you're going to see a border go up and return to the bad times?
No, and that's why honouring the Good Friday Agreement is part of the negotiations. But Peter, I was a Birmingham MP. I remember the pub bombings. I remember the times which really were very divisive, and therefore I think it's a responsibility on all of us to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And leaving the European Union is a rational decision about who you want to be your government. And the two are compatible if we want it to be.
Yeah, but for the last 25 years or so, it's been relatively good. If on the first day of Brexit, they're turned around and two people got shot, would you still say, this was a good thing to do, this was all right? We know that these two people have died because of Brexit, but we've got our borders back and we've got our money and we've got to get the immigrants out, everything like that. Would you say that it's a success and it's worth it?
No, but I don't accept that that's what people were voting for. They wanted to have a situation where the ultimate lawmakers were people they could remove by a vote. And therefore, I think there's responsibility on Dublin, there's responsibility on Belfast, and there's a responsibility on Brussels and London to make sure that that does not happen again.
Okay, Peter, thank you very much for your call. Unfortunately, I need to move on because I'm seriously running out of time. That was Peter in Lancaster, originally from Northern Ireland. Before we go, just because I want to be fair and balanced, Gary has tweeted something. I think I'm going to throw this to you, Jason. If the EU is such a fantastic and economic success, perhaps your pro-Remain guest, that's you, can explain why 10 years after the global crash, Eurozone unemployment is twice the rate it is in the US. The truth is the EU is a protectionist club that stifles growth and job creation.
Well, despite the fact that before the referendum, the United Kingdom was leading the G7 in terms of economic growth, today, 2 years on, the United Kingdom is one of the worst growing on our continent. The Greece's economy is growing faster than the UK's right now. It's right up your street, great, Alex.
I'm celebrating inside.
But people call it protectionist. They protect us. As part of the European Union, we are part of this thing. Our markets, our jobs, our livelihoods are protected. If we leave and try and go it alone, when we were in Geneva for those 2 days of meetings, other countries around the world are looking at the United Kingdom economy like a big fat tuna fish. Other countries are swimming around us, looking to take bites out of our economy in the United Kingdom. They're not going to give us the free trade deals that we're expecting. I mean, when we're in the EU, we're like in a bait ball, swimming around, lots and lots of fish all swimming around, protecting each other. You swim out by yourself, and there's a pack of sharks around waiting to take bites out of you. And that's exactly what will happen. What they told us in Geneva is under every single model, and this is quite a wealthy organisation, one of the most wealthy in the world, they've modeled modelled every single Brexit scenario, with a withdrawal agreement, without, with a trade deal, without, with Canada plus, with Norway, staying in EFTA, staying in the EEA, they've modelled every single scenario.
No deal as well?
No deal as well. Under every single scenario, they said the first sector that will be destroyed in the UK will be agri-foods. There's 3.5 million people work in the agriculture and agri-food processing sector in the United Kingdom. 3.5 million. They said under every single model, it dies within 18 months to 24 months maximum. They said that's the first one. We then went on to talk about industry and manufacturing and other sectors. But 3.5 million in agriculture. This is your dairy farmers, your sheep farmers, your lamb farmers. It's the downstream yogurt makers. It's the people that make the plastic pots to put the yogurt in. The companies that are making the silver foil lids for those plastic yogurt pots. The people that make the cardboard wrapping. The people that do the printing. The people who do the shipping. The logistics companies. There's 3.5 million households rely on the fact that we have an agri-foods industry, and some of the leading experts in the world say that's the first one that they're going to take from us.
Okay, Jason, I have to leave it there because I've really pushed it as far time as I can. We're going to say goodbye to Jason. Jason, quickly, where can people find you on Twitter?
I'm Jason J. Hunter on Twitter or YouTube. Have a search for Three Blokes in a Pub.
Three Blokes in a Pub. Good luck to you and your fight for Brexit. Gisela's going to be staying with me, and we're going to move on to Trump, and we're going to also be asking the question of, is austerity really over? Theresa May says it is.